Hey everyone, it's Aron Yohannes. That's Eric Nehm. We're just two guys who blog about the Milwaukee Bucks. So this is our video podcast, of course, the video mailbag where we answer your questions from Twitter, from Facebook, and we answer them here on this video, obviously. So without further ado, of course, let's get right into your questions. The Bucks just lost to the Thunder here at the Bradley Center. It was a pretty weird game. It was a blowout at first, but then they actually came back. But at the end of the day, they weren't able to capitalize down the stretch of the game. So overall, they suffered a loss. They ended the homestand now 2-3, which is not necessarily ideal for them right now because this is a pretty favorable homestand for them. But with that being said, let's get right into your questions. All right, the first question is from Willie Armstrong, aka Canada Bucks, on Twitter, and he says, given Giannis is doing well at point guard, is that the end game for MCW? Is he gone? #Brewhoop mail. That's an interesting question. I think Giannis has been doing well at point guard, obviously, but I mean, we haven't talked a lot about MCW in a while, which kind of says something really weird because we talk about him a lot during the season. But no, I don't think he's gone. I think he's on a pretty favorable contract right now, pretty good and valuable contract, a rookie contract that is. So I don't think he's gone necessarily. But at the end of the day, I think they do have answers now. And I talked about this with Charles Garner after the game, of course, from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. The Bucks have a lot of answers to the end of the season, and that's good. They're getting answers to certain things. They're getting answers about Giannis and Jabari. They're getting answers about Greg Monroe, answers about MCW. I think he's not necessarily gone, but we have discovered more like where he's going to fit long term. So I'm not going to say necessarily he's gone, but and Giannis isn't certainly the long-term point guard, but I think we do have more answers now.
I think the question is what kind of value can you get for Michael CarterWilliams? That's always the big question. I think it's the same question with Greg Monroe. No one asked a question about Monroe, but I think it's the same thing where you see you can do other things without them, and that's fine. But at the same time, you also know that they have value, and you want to get that value. So I think that's going to be the big question this entire offseason is how much value can they get for those players. So is he gone? I don't know. Is he willing to play off the bench? Again, I don't know. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't. And maybe after this season, he sees that maybe I'm not an NBA caliber starting point guard, and I do need to focus on being on the bench, and maybe that's a role he does next year. So I would struggle to say anything definitive there other than the Bucks will try to get value, and they'll probably talk to MCW about his role in the offseason and kind of see where it goes from there.
And he has talked many times this season. We've asked him about it. He says he believes he is a starting point guard in this league. So, I mean, if there's a situation where they're like, hey, you're going to need to come off the bench, and he doesn't want to do that, that can certainly cause a problem too. Our second question from Twitter as well comes from Fear the Deer, and he says, what should the Bucks approach be in June and July as far as the draft/free agency goes? #Brewhoop mail. Now, personally, I don't watch much of the prospects and the draft until the season is over, so I'm not going to be able to really answer that. I'm not sure about Eric, but free agency, they got to redo that bench, period. Jerry Bayless and OJ Mayo, one of those guys, I mean, they both probably might not be back. And then we don't know, of course, with Plumlee, with him being a restricted free agent. So I just think in general that bench, man, it's got to be cleaned out. They got to disinfect it. They got to clean it all over. Got to get some Lysol. But overall, they got to get another shooter on that bench. They have to kind of revamp that. So that's kind of like that focus to me as far as free agency is just adding more depth because those starters are getting killed.
Yeah, I think Bayless and Mayo, certainly interesting options. I'm a Bayless truther, so I think he should be back. I think he's been fantastic this year. But again, you do have to ask the question, can he do what he's done this year as a shooter? Because he's been one of the 5-10 best three-point shooters in the league, and that's not necessarily what he's been his whole career. So maybe he's that, maybe he's not. So you have to ask that question with Bayless. Mayo, he's Uncle Juice, and he's that guy that's there on the bench and willing to stick up for the young guys. But at the same time, he's been terrible. He's just been bad this year. So I think you have to think about those two guys. And then you got to take a look at your center position. You have three guys, and for the most part, Jason Kidd only plays two centers. So you have Plumlee, you have Henson, you have Monroe. Who goes, who stays, who gets money. Plumlee is a restricted free agent this offseason. So does someone throw $6 million per year at him, $8 million per year at him, $10 million per year at him? If he continues to play well, who knows what happens, but you have to kind of feel out that market. So I think they take care of that first, and then I guess try to go after a point guard.
I will say this, if OJ Mayo does leave, I will make a tribute video. Just saying, regardless of what happens, man, you gotta make a tribute video because he has come a long way here when you think about it.
Yeah.
All right, our final question comes, of course, from Twitter as well, and it's from Austin Villa, and he says, given they land between 7 and 9 in the draft, who do the Bucks look at? Hashtag Brewhoop Mail. Of course, like I said, we don't really look at prospects yet, but it's gonna be a point guard to me. That's a pretty quick answer. I think it's gonna be a point guard.
I'm the opposite. It's best player available in every situation, no matter who it is. Whoever you think the best player available is, that's who you take. That being said, you can define best player available a million different ways. And maybe in some people's definitions, fit works, and fit is a part of answering who's your best player available. So maybe that is a point guard. But I think you just have to go talent, pile up talent, and kind of see what happens from there. You can make trades from out of that. My thought process on the draft is always you draft for talent, and then you trade and sign people for fit. So with the draft, figure out who's most talented. I know there's a couple interesting homegrown prospects. Henry Ellenson, one of those from Marquette. Diamond Stone, also from Milwaukee. Two guys that might go in the top 15, and knowing people in Wisconsin, they might get a little excited about that.
Look, Sam Decker came a few games ago, and I couldn't take that, and he plays for the Rockets. Frank Kaminsky came, a week before that, and they're on the away teams. There's no way I'm going to be able to handle Diamond Stone or Henry Ellison going to the Bucks. I can't deal with that. That's going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thank you for watching this video podcast. Of course, continue to send us your questions at hashtag BrewhoopMail. Keep reading the content at brewhoop.com, and we'll see you next time.